Okay, so I have seen Supergirl. I saw it last night at one of the early fan event screenings that they were having. They seem to do these for almost all of the DC releases, whether that's DCU or the Elseworld stuff, but I really like the events that they put on. They're always a lot of fun. I feel like the fans are always pretty involved. I think last night may have been an exception for that because my theater wasn't very full, which is abnormal for these kind of fan first event screenings. And I know these aren't the same movies. I'm not going to put them on the same level whenever it comes to hype. The Batman, Superman, Brand New Day. I just got tickets for the fan first screening that they're doing at the end of July. I think the Wednesday before, just like this. And it was virtually impossible to get tickets. I was put in a queue for initially 4 hours to get onto the Fandango website. I refreshed a little bit later. Took me down to 20 minutes. I only ended up waiting like 10, but it was still a nightmare trying to get on there and get tickets for that fan first screening. I was able to secure tickets, but they were pretty much halfway gone, like 15 minutes into them being on sale. Same thing for Superman last year. It was the same thing for the Batman fan first screenings. I had to sit in the front row for IMAX, but I think a more appropriate comparison would be Joker 2, just because it's kind of tracking on the same level up until this point. I know Joker 2 had really bad reviews right out of the gate, and that caused a lot of people to cancel their tickets. And I feel like this is going to be the same way because we've seen that tracking is slowly going down. It has been going down week to week for the last month or so. I'm not very confident in how this weekend's going to turn out whenever it comes to how much it actually makes compared to what the initial projections were, and even what the projections are going into this weekend. I just have a really bad feeling about it. But with Joker 2, it was pretty hard to get tickets for the fan first screening. I had to sit like in the third row in the IMAX screening that I went to. And I live in Pittsburgh and we only have one IMAX theater. So that's always a hot commodity. It's always hard to get tickets for pretty much anything opening weekend whenever it comes to those IMAX showings. So it was pretty disappointing to see the lack of turnout, should I say, whenever it came to this movie. I think it kind of gave me a feel for where the general audience is sitting whenever it comes to overall hype for this movie, as opposed to even something like Superman, which didn't do gangbusters or anything at the box office last year. I would say it was a moderate hit. They were definitely expecting more from it, but I think it did better than I thought it was going to do. And I thought this was going to do better, not only critically, because as of right now, I think it has like a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I also thought it was going to do better financially at this time last year. So coming out of Superman, going into this movie, I had some hype. I had some reservations. I really like the Woman of Tomorrow comic book. So it kind of saddens me to say that this is a very, very inferior version to said source material. Before we get into all of that, though, do me a favor. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, like button, turning on post notifications. Whatever you guys want to do to support the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. So, Supergirl. I have tons and tons of thoughts. Not all bad, mostly on the negative side. I didn't absolutely hate this movie. I didn't think it was the worst thing that I've seen all year by a long shot. But after having a night to marinate in my thoughts regarding this movie, I think I disliked it a lot more than I liked it. It certainly has moments that I really did love. I really liked Millie Alcock in this movie. I think she's great casting as Kara/Supergirl. Really liked Jason Momoa in the role of Lobo. He looks like he was having a blast. They don't really give him all that much to do, but I really liked some of the lines that he delivered. He got some of the bigger pops whenever it came to humor. God knows those are some of the only times I laughed in this, but we'll get to the humor. The stuff with Argo City I thought was done really well, and was definitely the peak of this movie. It has a few touching moments here and there with Crypto and her whole backstory, and you know, her just feeling for her in general whenever it comes to all that she has lost. But other than that, everything I would say is a complete mess whenever it comes to its overall narrative wrapping and how it goes about telling this story. There are so many rushed moments, but then there are also so many moments where I'm like, okay, we could have sped past this a little bit quicker. There are so many plot contrivances, you know, for example, one of her superpowers is that she can see through things, and they make it a point to acknowledge that. They show visually multiple times her seeing through a bag, her seeing through a wall, but there are so many moments where Krem, the villain, gets away and she could have just seen him through a wall. And it's just like little things like that that kind of take you out of the moment, kind of be like, well, wait, what about that? And speaking of Krem, he was a very underwhelming villain. You know, I think his first scene was by far the best scene we got of him, and then the rest of it was kind of like, you know, the actor's having a good time. I think he was giving an okay performance with what he was given, but overall he just wasn't really menacing in like this dark way that I felt that I kind of got that vibe from the comics. You know, Krem, make no mistake, Krem is not one of the most developed characters of all time in the comics. I feel like he's very one-noted, but I also feel like this was their opportunity to expand upon his character in a film medium. And if anything, he feels less developed in this than he does in the comic book. The humor really did not work for me 90% of the time. There's one scene on the space bus, that whole debacle, there's a little cameo from literally a little cameo. Dude plays a small alien on a bus. That cameo got a lot of chuckles out of me and my audience. And then there were a few line deliveries from Lobo that I laughed at out loud. But other than that, there was a lot of comedy that just really did not land. It fell so flat. It fell flatter than a lot of the MCU humor that I have become accustomed to. You know, you go to an MCU movie, you're not going to be wowed by the humor almost all of the time. And I feel like this even came underneath that whenever it comes to my standards for MCU comic book humor. You know, I'm expecting not all of it to land, but with this, it really didn't work for me. And there were certain moments and certain jokes where I was like, okay, I get it. This is becoming a little played out, a little repetitious. Let's just end it here and stop with the jokes. And let's just try to focus on the story at hand, because God knows that they needed some more time to focus on the story at hand with this. The stakes in this never really felt real. And coming from somebody who has read the comic, I know pretty much beat for beat what's going to happen. They do make some deviations, which I will get to. One of which I really did not like, and I think I'm gonna have to mention spoilers for that, but the stakes really didn't feel real whenever it came to Crypto. You know, he's gonna be okay, and the way they play it out, you know he's going to be okay. And the way they do her relationship with Crypto, Kara's relationship with Crypto, you don't really feel it. You get like the opening montage of them having like a good time for her birthday, Crypto celebrating with her, but all of the meaningful moments with Crypto we get after he is hurt initially. And I feel like if we would have gotten some of that beforehand, it really would have helped with the weight of what was happening with Crypto. But even aside from the Crypto thing, whenever it comes to stakes, the whole Ruthie going after Krem thing and Kara begrudgingly taking her along, I felt no stakes with that side of the story. The needle drops were another thing that really bugged me. 90% of them felt so out of place, and it felt like they happened like every few minutes. Like we would play a song and then we would do like a 2 to 3 minute scene, and then another song would start up, and it was kind of like, okay, I get it, this is trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy really hard. And then all of that comes to a head with the final fight and the needle drop that they chose for that. I was genuinely sitting in the theater, and I think I did this face. Like, I do not understand what they were thinking with that needle drop in that specific moment. It took me completely out of the movie, and I was just thinking to myself for the next couple minutes, what an odd choice for them to go with. But my biggest disappointment about this movie overall is how much of a watered down version this feels like, as opposed to the vastly superior source material that this is drawing from Woman of Tomorrow. Instead of trying to emulate the uniqueness of the comic, I felt like it was more concerned with being an amalgamation of a ton of different tones and scenes and sequences from different IPs that did them much better in their own respected right. And after sitting on it, like I said, I didn't initially think all that much of it, but there is a big change at the end whenever it comes to Krem's character and Kara and Ruthie's decision whenever it comes to what to do with Krem at the end. Gonna go into spoilers here. In the comic, they don't kill Krem. In the movie, Ruthie wants to kill him, and Kara's like, no, don't kill him, takes her sword and tells her to walk away, and then Kara stabs him once for Crypto and then stabs him in the neck for what he did to that little girl. And I really did not like that deviation from the comic. It really just messes with the whole message of Woman of Tomorrow, like revenge and, you know, just killing somebody isn't going to make you feel better. And in regards to that, you know, she kind of saved Ruthie from that trauma, but she put that trauma on herself because she had stakes in that too, because Krem shot her dog, and she was telling Ruthie one thing, this isn't going to make it better, and then she goes and does it herself. And to me, that kind of just felt like it was like just hopping back and forth between what it really wanted to do and what the overall message wanted to be whenever it came to this movie. Overall, at its best, this movie is incredibly mid. At its worst, it's incredibly messy. I by no means hated the movie. I didn't think it was terrible. I just walked away very underwhelmed, wanting to like it so much more than I did. I thought it was entirely forgettable, and as much as I like Superman, I'd be lying if I said some of my trust hasn't been shaken whenever it comes to this. And I don't want to sound very reactionary. I don't want to sound hyperbolic whenever it comes to, me expressing my thoughts about the future of this brand just based on one movie. Who knows? Maybe Lanterns will blow us away, though I haven't really been impressed with the marketing whenever it comes to Lanterns. Maybe it will be great. Clayface's marketing has really impressed me. But just some of the decision making whenever it comes to how we're propelling this universe forward is not really clicking with me. Like I just saw today, they confirmed that a crypto animated show has been greenlit. They've been talking about the Jimmy Olsen and Gorilla Grodd show that they're going to start filming at the end of the year. And I see those projects and I'm like, okay, if the universe was doing amazingly right now, undeniably great, and we had all of this set up that made those projects worth watching, then I would basically have no complaints. I'd still be like, why are we getting these? This doesn't really make sense. Even at the height of the MCU, there were certain projects we were like, this doesn't really make sense into what is going on right now. And I feel like that's still happening to this day with the MCU, but with the DCU, it hasn't really had a chance to establish itself yet. And we're doing crypto shows and Jimmy Olsen shows and Gorilla Grodd shows and Creature Commando seasons before we get Batman and Wonder Woman and the core team of the Justice League. Really any other A-list DC character. We're getting all of these C and D-list characters that they're trying to push to the forefront, and I get it. James Gunn found great success whenever it came to Guardians of the Galaxy and propelling those characters into the cultural zeitgeist and making them the characters that they are today. It's not going to work for everybody. I feel like Guardians was a very, very special treat for fans of that comic and fans that weren't expecting those characters to be as big and investable as they were. And I just can't see that happening with some of the choices that they're making right now. And it's just, like I said, I may be overthinking it, but those are my current and raw thoughts regarding this whole situation. I really hope I'm proven wrong whenever it comes to my outlook on the future of this brand. I don't think Supergirl is going to outright ruin the DCU by itself. I think if anything, just the future lineup has me questioning things, and I'm just kind of preparing myself for this universe ultimately not to pan out. But I don't want to sound hyperbolic or sound like I'm exaggerating things just based on how I feel about this one movie, but I can't help but feel and think about those other things coming down the pipeline based on what we got in this. And then the writer of this is working on Wonder Woman and the Teen Titans movie. I really don't know how to feel, guys. I really don't know how to feel about the future of the DCU right now. As much as I loved Superman and am looking forward to Man of Tomorrow, I just think my trust is shaken and very questionable right now. I'm a lot more, I'm going into the future of this brand with a lot more hesitation than I thought I would before seeing this movie and just hearing about some of the other projects that we have coming down the pipeline. But I don't want to sound like I'm hating on the DCU or this movie, because I'm really not. I'm just voicing my concerns after seeing this and not seeing a great movie out of it when it really should have been based on the source material. But I've done enough yapping. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments below. If you've seen the movie, let me know your thoughts. Keep it spoiler free, even though there's really not all that much to spoil. Most of the plot points are out there. I spoiled like the most egregious change that they took from the comic and made into this movie, so I don't think there's too much to spoil out there. But let me know your thoughts down below. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, like button, turning on post notifications, whatever you want to do to support the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. So hopefully you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next one.